can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Happy August 14th. Couple weeks left in the summer, Pierre. It has flown by, as we were just saying off the air. Time to get ready for college hockey and pro hockey right around the corner.
Well, it's a month away till NHL training camp starts, Jimmy, and great job last week with Mike McMahon. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much for filling in for me. What a turbulent time it's been over the last few days in the National Hockey League. Just crazy stuff going on. We'll get to all of it with Matthew Barnaby. That's a tremendous guest to have on. Congratulations to Auston Matthews and his family. Auston, new captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And you know what? Hats off to John Tavares. The way he handled the whole thing, phenomenal. I've known John a long time, respect him a ton as a person, really respect him as a player. But the way he carried himself, that's the ultimate sign of leadership. Selfless, totally selfless player. It
really is. And Pierre, we've seen this happen a few times before, obviously in NHL history here. And it's always can be such an uncomfortable situation. So as you said, I mean, really credit to him for the way he embraced it instead of kind of fighting it or, he could have, and he had every right to. He had every right to be uncomfortable with it and make it that way, but he didn't. So I'm with you. Hats off to him for doing that. My question to him, we'll talk about it with Matthew in a bit. Just when you look at Auston Matthews and, his career so far on and off the ice, he's had some setbacks. He's had some positive stuff. He's grown as a player and a person. Do you think he's ready for this right now? And also, do you think he was already sort of in that role or a secondary role to Tavares in the last couple seasons?
I think in Toronto, when you have the C on your sweater, it's important.
Yeah,
I do. They're not every city. I would say that. I think Montreal is one of those cities where it's important. The Rangers, it's somewhere where it's
original
important.
six.
Yeah, Boston, Detroit, Chicago. It matters in those places. I think most Canadian cities, it matters because they see it as a conduit from ownership to management to coaching staff to the captain when it comes to delivering information or news of the day about the team. I do think he's ready. I think he's been ready for a while. I can't stress this enough. Selfless act by John Tavares. Respect him so much for doing this. Jimmy, I've thought about it a lot from all my time in the league, trying to think about when there's actually been a huge payoff when you've made this kind of a switch internally. And the one I came up with goes back to the early 90s. I was coaching. The New Jersey Devils were on the upswing. They weren't there yet. And Bruce Driver was their captain. And they went from Bruce Driver as their captain to Scott Stevens as their captain. Bruce Driver went back as an alternate captain. And they went on to win 3 Stanley Cups with Scott Stevens as their captain. That's the one time that and maybe there are other times over the history of the league, I can't think of any, but that's the one time I can say internally they made a move. All the parts that were moving stayed there, and the team had success and won 3 cups after they made the change. Yeah. I can't think of another time where there's been massive success like that.
Yeah, one thing too, Pierre, as you're talking here, I just thought about this too. I like the fact that, when Auston Matthews came in and he was instantly a success on the ice and he was as advertised as a hockey player, they didn't just make him the captain then because he was their best player. I don't like when a team makes the quote unquote best player talent wise the captain just because of that reason. I don't think it's about that. It's about a variety of things. And as we discussed already, leadership is the biggest one, obviously. But we've seen it happen too many times. And I covered it in Boston when the Bruins smacked that C on Joe Thornton. And he'll tell you that he was not ready for that. And clearly he wasn't, and they end up trading him only a few months after they did it. So I love that they gave it a little time. And obviously it's not just Brad Treliving. This goes back to Kyle Dubas. And even before that, just the organization as a whole, let the process take care of itself. And now they've identified, all right, he's ready to take on this role, not just as the best player, but as a leader. And I agree with you. I think it's great that Tavares is still there. Like, he's going to be such a good guy to bounce off, and say, hey, how did I handle that tonight? Was I good with the media? You know, and I'm sure he's already done that a lot, and they've kind of graded him or, you know, evaluated how he does handle those situations. But to have him still there, to have him be embracing that role, to continue as a mentor for him is huge, I think, for Auston Matthews in this role.
Yeah, it's just got to work now. I mean, their defense still isn't a ton better.
No, okay, but we could do a whole episode about what the team is on the ice. But
I just want people to understand this isn't a panacea.
Yeah,
where because we've changed the captaincy, all of a sudden we're going to be a better team. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up the instance of Bruce Driver and Scott Stevens in New Jersey. Driver stayed, but this was a team that was on the rise. You could see it. I coached against them. I mean, they were really on the rise. And then, you know, Jacques Lemaire got a hold of them, that whole group, and Larry Robinson, and they whipped those guys into shape, and they were good.
And they formed an identity.
Jimmy, they weren't a little bit good. People, like, I know it's a lot of years ago. They were really good, Jimmy.
Oh, they
I'm
were
telling
tough.
you right now. And I can tell you, the team I was part of, we were really good.
Uh-huh.
We were really good. Though you could tell those guys were about to pass us because we were going to lose some guys. Brian Trottier was going to move on. Joey Mullen was going to move on. You know, you could see Larry was going to move on. We were getting older, and they were starting to go like this, and we were like, oh, boy.
Yeah.
You could see it.
I'm with you on that. Now that before we move on from the Leafs, because there was obviously other big news, some offer sheets thrown down and accepted. We'll get to that in a second. But just one more thing about Toronto too, the Mitch Marner situation. You know, who was the player I saw talk about it the other day? I'm sorry, it's going to escape my mind, but it was a former player that played with him. Oh, it was Zach Bogosian, just talking about his brief time playing with Mitch Marner.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, I don't get the hate. People want him to be something maybe he's not. They need to accept what he is, and that's a damn good player. And that's a player that can burn you with intelligence, with great hockey IQ, with pure skill and speed. And, you know, you have other people maybe that can fill in the roles that maybe they want him to tack on to his responsibilities. And he was talking about the physical side. He goes, that's just not Mitch Marner. It is what it is. They need to accept him for what he is and embrace him. And I wonder now with Auston Matthews, because, you know, they're close and they're kind of two young guys that have come up the ranks together in Toronto as the young foundation. And now they are the young, not even the young, I mean, young to us, but they are a matured core. I wonder how much that helps the Mitch Marner situation. How much does he kind of go to bat for him in certain instances where he needs to?
Well, I thought Johnny Tavares went to bat for him too.
Yeah, he was great.
I think this comes down to Mitchell helping himself.
Yep.
Maybe some fans don't like it. First of all, a little background on Zach Bogosian. He's a great upstate New York kid from Messina, New York. Spent a lot of time in his father's car driving to practices up in Ottawa when he was a young kid. His dad was a great football player at Syracuse University. He grew up in an athletic household. His brother was a Navy SEAL. Speaks and works with the Minnesota Wild still as a motivation coach. Mm-hmm. They get this stuff. They get up the camaraderie stuff in the Bogosian house. I have a lot of time and respect for Zach. I've spent a lot of time with him over the years, and I got a lot of time for him. The fact that he stepped out and tried to help Mitchell Marner, I think it's great. But I will tell you this, and I don't think the Bogosians would disagree with me. We're at a point now where Mitchell's got to help himself.
Right. Good call.
As much as, you know, the team's going to step up for him, they're going to insulate him, he's got to help himself. And it's not during the regular season. It's going to come down to, what are you going to do for me in the playoffs?
Yep.
That's going to be the key.
And there can't, look, I'm not judging anyone for frustration. We all get frustrated. Emotions can get the best of us. He's human. But they need to let him know you can't be doing what you did in that series against Boston on the bench with the cameras on and everybody to see it, because I don't care what anyone says. It was a moment in that series, and it became a distraction, and it wasn't a good look. And so I'm sure they talked to him then, and they've talked to him in the off season, and he'll mature and find his way through that. All right, let's get to the offer sheets, Pierre, before we get Matthew Barnaby on. Oh, we got Matthew. You know what? We'll talk to him about that, and also Matthews, and then we'll analyze this stuff later when we do our Q&A with our viewers and listeners. Matthew Barnaby joining us here, former NHLer right now on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. Matt, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Just up at the lake. Pierre, comment ça va? How are you?
Oui, ça va, mon ami Matthew, ça va. Hey, félicitations à ton chum, ton petit homme. Your namesake is now signed with Worcester, I saw. Congratulations, Matthew. That's great.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, before we get going here, I really want to say this. Matthew and I have known each other since probably the early 90s. I had just left Pittsburgh. I was coaching in Hartford. Matthew was just starting in the NHL. And we used to get after one another a lot. I was coaching, he was playing, and he used to drive our guys nuts. And that's part of why I try to get after him. And we became real good friends. But I want everybody to know this. I've had the good fortune of being around the Mario Lemieux camp for a long time. It's an unbelievable fantasy camp in Pittsburgh. Mario's put his heart and soul into it for a lot of years. 85 people from around the world come. They pay significant money. Matthew had the opportunity to be there, Jimmy, for the first time this year. And I'm going to tell you right now, and I went and told Matthew this. You made such an impact on those people, Matthew. I was so proud of you as a friend and as a hockey person. And what you did to elevate the spirit of that camp was phenomenal. And I didn't know you had that in your game, and you do have it in your game. And it was awesome, Matthew. It really was.
Well, Pierre, it's nice talking to you. I know how passionate you are with your son in hockey, and seems like every time we get together, we talk about the kids more than anything. And that's what it's all about. In the end, I love following kids of players, of coaches, of people that I've got to know over the years and watch them make the NHL or play in Europe, whatever they may be doing. So, and as for Mario, you know what a class guy he is. You've been a part of that camp for many years. It was just awesome to be a part of it, to be honest, and raise money for such a great cause, and to get to meet so many new people and play hockey and have a couple cocktails. I might have had a few during those 5 days.
There you go.
Jimmy, it was the way, Matthew, you were so electrifying, and every single person there came up to me and said, I didn't know Matthew could be like that. And I said, neither did I. It was great. I thought it was so awesome. It was really good.
A lot of fun.
Matthew, before we get into the hockey news and all that stuff right now, just why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what you've been doing post-career and what you're doing right now these days? I know that you do a lot of motivational speaking, so just let them know about that. Yeah,
I do a lot of events, whether it's hockey and golf or motivational speaking for companies, small and big. So that's been really cool to kind of transition into that. I was in media for years and really enjoyed it. Mainstream media, I don't know if it's for me. I'm a little maybe too outspoken sometimes. Wrong with that. But that's just who I am, and that's not gonna change. But motivational speaking has been awesome to be able to tell your story and where I came from. I was last overall pick in junior. I was fortunate to have great coaches and one Alan Cheney that gave me an opportunity. Ted Nolan along the way really believed in me, as well as the late John Muckler who drafted me and really gave me that first opportunity, that foot in the door to break down. So to be able to do that, I was working with a gambling company in Ontario, but the laws have changed over the last year in Ontario. So, the Connor McDavids, the Wayne Gretzkys, the Matthew Barnabys aren't able to be a part of those anymore, which is kind of weird, but at the same time, a space that I still do a little bit in and out of. But retirement's been great. And then just traveling to see my kids. My daughter lives in Cleveland, Ohio. She's a flight attendant. My son's a hockey player. Was in Finland last year. Got to go there a little bit and freeze my butt off. And now he's going to be in Worcester, just outside of Boston. So it's going to be a little nicer visiting Boston. I can promise you that.
Well, I'm from Boston myself, Matt, and I live in Portsmouth, New Hampshire now, but maybe I'll see you around. I go down there sometimes. I'll tell you, actually, Worcester's a pretty cool city. It's one of the up-and-coming cities in Massachusetts, so he's going to like it there. A lot of great restaurants. It's really turned itself around, so he'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I know we're really excited. He's really excited, and he just wants an opportunity. He's 26 years old, and he's not going to be an NHL player by no means, but he just loves to play the game. He's a hockey nerd and absolutely loves it as much as I do, and that's all you want for your kids.
Exactly.
And Jimmy, background on young Matthew's son. He's an Avon Old Farms kid that eventually went to founding of the USHL, played in Youngstown, and he's been battling ever since. I've watched him play all the way along. He's a good player. He's a really good player.
Wow, I did not know that. Nice. Avon Old Farms. They did a whooping on my school a couple times back in the day, St. Sebastian. So, all right. Well, listen, tons of hockey news here, Matt. And you took to Twitter yesterday when the news, or 2 days ago when it broke about Auston Matthews getting the captaincy, which happened today, and they had a press conference there with Tavares and Trey Living. But just in case people didn't see it there, talk to our viewers and listeners about how you were kind of looking at the situation, because as Pierre and I just said, it can be an awkward time when, the current captain is still on a team. It's not like he retired or he got traded or he moved on via free agency. He's still there, and now he's handing the C to another player. You had a similar situation that you experienced, eh?
Yeah, my first year, my only year in Dallas, which I absolutely loved. And I loved Dave Tippett. I loved Doug Armstrong. They were tremendous to me, and it was my last year that I ever ended up playing. But when I got there is really when it happened, literally within 2 weeks. And it's a little different in this situation only because the face of the franchise then was Mike Modano, Hall of Famer and face of the franchise. Like anywhere you went, not that they didn't know a lot about the Dallas Stars in hockey, but they knew Mike Modano before they knew about the Dallas Stars. So he was definitely the face. It was awkward. It was very, very awkward for a while. And they were very, very good friends. The difference was Dave Tippett wanted our team to adapt the identity of Brendan Morrow. And Mike is a flashy player, a skilled player. Listen, one of the fastest skaters I've ever seen with the puck. Just incredible, and a great teammate, a great player. Brendan Morrow's a hard-nosed guy with talent, can score, but literally is going to bring his lunch pail every day. Completely the polar opposite of Mike Modano, and Dave Tippett wanted that identity for his team. Where it was awkward was they were friends. Mike was the face of the franchise, and we all knew he was going to be a Hall of Famer. So all those things made it a little awkward. Mike handled it great, but we could still feel that there was animosity towards Tippett and towards the organization at the time because he had done everything for the organization. And it wasn't against Brendan. Brendan was a great captain. Now, I still think captains are overvalued in the big scheme of things. I've played with great captains, and I've had Mario, who's awesome. I've had Pat LaFontaine, who's amazing. Joe Sakic, Mark Messier, so many great captains. But I think the C on a sweater is a little overvalued. You know, I've been an assistant captain on different teams. I've had no letter, and I act the exact same way. I've had captains that don't say a lot. I've had captains that do say a lot. And I look at our teams in Buffalo. I look at, when I played in Colorado, it's leadership groups. And that's just not the guys with the C's and the A's. It's the veteran leadership. I can tell you when I was in Colorado, you got Tamu, you got Paul Correa, Adam Foote, Rob Blake, Joe Sakic, Pierre Forsberg. There's such a plethora of guys and completely different personalities. And it never came down to just Joe. Now, when Joe spoke, did you listen? Absolutely. But equally, when Milan Hejuk doesn't say much, stands up and says something, well, that has some validity to what we want to accomplish. So I really feel it's a bigger group than just a captain or a couple captains. And I know it's Toronto. I know that it's a big deal and it's an honor and all of that. But from what I've seen in the past, from teams that I played with in Buffalo, we held each other accountable. And if William Nylander and Mitch Marner and Auston Matthews and John Tavares and Morgan Riley aren't the ones as a group calling each other out when stuff goes wrong, because you're not always going to play great. But it's up to the inner leadership. I had fights with Rob Ray and Brad May and my line mates, Michael Groschick and Curtis Brown. Listen, I've never heard Curtis Brown swear in my life. He's a born-again Christian. But we've had those FU matches, and his might have been frig and mine might have been something else. But when we weren't on the same page and things weren't going well, we figured it out. And 15 minutes later, we're hugging and loving each other as brothers because we only wanted to push each other. And I just think that's where captains get overvalued. But Toronto's a different beast, as we all know.
You know what, though, Matthew? It might be a different beast. I don't know if their team's much better from last year. They might be a little bit improved, but I don't know if the captain's going to make a big difference. I really don't.
Listen, Auston Matthews can't score more goals than he scored.
Correct.
We're not going to get this revelation. I mean, he's top five, whatever it is, top five players in the world. You could trade him in and out, if you prefer him a little bit more, but he's great defensively. He scores 70 goals a year. I mean, he's not going to get better. Is John Tavares on the decline? Of course, it was 65 points in 80 games, whereas before that, with his time with the Toronto Maple Leafs, he was close to a point per game guy. But he's on the decline, and at $11 million, everyone knows that you're not trading that contract unless you're throwing a lot of picks into it or you're soaking up a lot of that money. Now, would you take John Tavares back for a 3-year deal after this at $2 or $3 million? Of course. I heard someone on a different sports station who I respect as an analysis a lot say, "Oh, we wouldn't even want him back if this team didn't win." Now, if John Tavares is making $3 million and you have an extra $8 million to spend on other parts, you have a better team. But I agree with you, Pierre. They're a little bit better, a little bit.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to playoff time, it doesn't become the talent. They have the talent to be able to do it. Are they talented enough on the back end? We'll see. Do they have a good enough goaltender? He hasn't proven himself over a long period of time, but he's showing flashes in Joseph Woll, and they gave him that new contract. We know. Pierre knows better than anyone. He's won Stanley Cups. When it comes down to the playoffs, there's talented teams. Everyone's talented once you get to the end. Well, once you get to the playoffs and there's 16 teams, how do you grind? How do you grind it out? How do you find a way to win? And does your goalie come up with those big saves at the right time?
And Jimmy, that's why we call the show the eye test, because that's what Matthew Barnaby was. He was an eye test player. You had to watch him to understand how he can influence the outcome of a game. He didn't need to score to influence the outcome of a game. Rob Ray didn't need to score to influence the outcome of a game. I know Brad May scored a huge goal against the Bruins, Jimmy, but he usually didn't have to score to influence the outcome of a game. Sammy Bennett doesn't have to score to influence the outcome of a game. Yep. And that's what Matthew's talking about. And those guys are invaluable. Yep. They're priceless players.
Yep.
Well, look at Matthew Tkachuk scores goals. But when we think of Matthew Tkachuk and his run to winning a Stanley Cup, the closest they have to a Matthew Tkachuk in Toronto is Max Domi. That's the closest they have that can play top 6, top 9, that plays that style. And I always say it's just like Brady Tkachuk here. And I had said this when they had drafted him and watched him his first year. Listen, it's easy to go into Toronto. It's easy to go into Montreal. It's easy to go into LA on a Saturday night and play great and be amped up. Going to Winnipeg on a Tuesday in February. Tell me how amped up the guys are to play.
Yeah.
You need some of those guys to drag you into that fight sometimes. And the Tkachuk brothers certainly are that. I just don't see us Toronto having that. They have to beat you by skill.
Yep.
They have to beat you by skill. That's the only way they're going to beat you.
Well, I'll give them credit in that Boston series, this past one in the first round there. They did make that comeback in the series, and the way they were able to make that comeback was they bought in defensively. That was for that core and that group that we're looking at that's been there for a bit. That was the best defensive hockey I've seen them play, and it worked. So you wonder now, they come into the summer like, oh, okay, so this does work. This is what we actually have to do to have. I know they didn't get over the hump and win that Game 7, but this is what we have to do. The problem is, like you guys just said, I don't know if they got enough guys to come in and do that on a regular basis. You can do it in a quick, isolated 3-game span, but can you do it for 4 rounds of the playoffs? Can you equal that into 16 wins in the playoffs? I don't think they have that yet.
And I love Craig Berube. I love him as a person.
And he'll bring some of that,
tough SOB, who I fought a few times. But he's a great dude. He's going to make sure, and he's going to be upstairs in Tree Living's office pretty quickly if he doesn't see what he needs or what he thinks he needs to be able to win a Stanley Cup. If like Nylander's been their best player in general in the playoffs, like he's the guy that's come to play. And I think he's going to assess this through the first half of the year and say, okay, this is what we need. This is what we don't have. And this is who has to go. And I think he is the right guy for the job there. But it is Toronto. And this is the part about being a captain. I've never understood he's got to face the media every day. You're making $13 million or $11 million or $10 million. It's not hard to just go answer questions, whether it's good or bad. And here's what I've always learned with dealing with media. Just be honest.
Yep.
Just be honest. If your team's not playing well, don't shy away from it. Just say, hey, we suck right now. We got to find a way. People are too smart in today's day and age. The media is too smart. People always say, oh, this guy doesn't know where. people got their sources. There's leaks in every organization around the world.
Yeah.
Okay. There's more leaks around the NHL and the NFL than Enron had. I mean, there's leaks everywhere. So when you call out a media guy for not knowing his stuff, they usually have some insight onto what's going on or players there above. So it is a tough market. Auston Matthews is the face of the franchise. We knew he was going to be the captain at some point. John Tavares is a classy guy, a very good player, a great player over his career. In his decline, this was a natural progression, but let's not make more of it than it is. This is just a C being switched for an A.
So Jimmy, I want to back up our friend, Mr. Barnaby, for a second here, because I totally agree with everything he just said. I think the biggest change they made is Craig Berube coming in there. And I'll give you an example. Yep. If you're not pulling the rope in the direction he wants you to, I'll use what happened in St. Louis in 2019. Steen went from a first-line player to a fourth-line player. Sundqvist went from a third-line player to a fourth-line player. Barbashev went from a second-line player to a fourth-line player. All of a sudden, he put together, which that's why you don't number your lines, by the way. He put together one of the best fourth lines in the National Hockey League. They did every one of their playoff games. Every single playoff game they played, from the start to the end. Those guys influenced more games than anybody else in their team. Steen, Sundqvist, and Barbashev. Yep. And it's what Matthew talked about. Berube's the guy that's going to change it. It's not going to be Auston Matthews. He can't score more goals.
Yeah.
He can't.
He's going to do what he's going to do, but that's that. Yeah.
And I listen, I am very much in matching, and listen, not to the point where it takes your big guys out of rhythm, but I'm big on matching lines. And when it comes down to the playoffs, everyone's got a top line. Everyone's top line is really good. And as you go through and the depth that you have throughout that lineup, are you able to have that Barbashev? Are you able to have that big physical mentality and look at St. Louis when they won? Heavy. Florida when they won? Heavy. Vegas when they won? Heavy.
Yep.
All heavy teams.
Yep.
Very heavy, because as you go through, the punishment just takes its toll one after another. And we talk about a game 1 to game 7. Well, now go game 8 to game 6, 15 and 16 to 20. Like it's a hard thing to win. I never won one. I got to the conference finals once, and I really only thought I had a chance once in Colorado to win. But you got to be heavy at some point through your lineup. And when you get into those fourth lines that are heavy, it's massive. It's massive.
Yep. With you, I mean, Pierre, you said it, and you were dead right. I remember in 2011 when the Bruins won, and you said they don't win that cup without the Merlot line.
No, well, Danny Paille, Sean Thornton, those guys were bringing the heat. Gregory Campbell, like you go back and look at that line.
Yeah,
influenced Game 7 right out of the hop. Yeah, I remember the night. Barney will appreciate this. The night before Game 7, I was at the Pan Pacific Hotel, and my good friend and former player Mark Recchi came up, and we sat together and maybe had a glass of rouge or two. And we were talking about how the game was going to be played. And he says, if our depth guys can't elevate, they'll beat us. But if they can, we'll beat them. And Rex couldn't have been more correct. Could not have been more correct.
That's how you win in the playoffs.
He's a good dude.
I want to get into a little of your career, Matt. And, Pierre and I were talking before the show, as we do every day when we set up for this. And I said, I was looking through some of Matthew's fight tapes, and I didn't realize, did you fight Zdeno Chara 4 times?
Yeah, there's some things you just wish you could take back in life. Those are probably 4 instances. Usually,
wow, you're pretty coherent still in your age for doing that.
Yeah. They can't find the CTE till I'm done, boys. So I'm gonna go with no. You know what? It just happened. Great player, great person. Just did everything right. Just certain points in games, you try to change the momentum, and whether I was with New York or Buffalo or Pittsburgh, you just try to change the momentum and try to fire up your team. Not that I thought I could beat them, but just try to make it almost, salvageable. A couple times I did, a couple times I didn't. But it's tough to go into some fights like Stu Grimson, as Pierre knows well. Those are tough ones when you really know in the back of your mind. Because I used to line up beside guys, and even though I wasn't the best player, I always say, I'm better than the guy that I'm playing with. Every single shift, be better than the guy that you're playing against. And that was just my mentality. And I try to do that with some of the fights, but just subconsciously, I think when you're in for it.
Jimmy, you know what? I want to, again, give more props to Matthew. He played in an era where the odd in Buffalo was a real hard building to play in. Now, he had the home crowd, obviously, but he had to go into Chicago Stadium. He had to go into Boston Garden. You know, people from Matthew, you remember, these buildings were different. Like, this was a different way to play. And I'm just telling you, guys like that had to do Matthew's job. You go into the Spectrum in Philadelphia, that tunnel, that bus ride down, you could hear guys, I don't feel so good today, coach. I don't know if I can play. It was tough. I think Matthew froze on us once I started talking about the old buildings.
Yeah, there we go. Well, maybe I brought up Char, and he went back. Hope we get him back here, because I want to ask him about a certain experience he had with the Sabres and Flyers, Pierre. I don't know if you remember the line brawl.
I do.
We've got that clip.
He's, I'll tell you, like, this guy, you hear how he talks about the game. His knowledge of the game is phenomenal.
Yep.
And his passion for the game is amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's why I brought up the story about the Lemieux camp, because he was just so good. There you are. You're back. You're alive.
We got you, brother. We got you, Matt. I don't know if you can hear us.
He'll get it.
Yeah.
Looking for volume.
Okay.
You're good.
I know it's nice when you can do it outside, but sometimes the Wi-Fi
We'll get it.
Yep. But yeah, he did fight in a tough era. Pierre.
Well, that's why I brought up the buildings.
Lots of tough customers then.
I want to hear what he has to say about the buildings, because I can tell you those buildings were hard to go into. And people forget that. I mean, you go into Chicago. I remember coaching games in Chicago State, and you'd be like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
This is Rome. This is the Coliseum. You went in there. You had to be tough. I never coached in the Olympia in Detroit. Joe Louis was back in the day. Joe Louis was tough.
Well, I'll tell you though, Pierre, even like in the late 90s when the Sabres were good, and then of course they made that run in 99 and lost to Dallas. They even made the new place. They made that new place tough to play in. I remember talking to some Bruins players, and obviously it doesn't have you're not right on top of it, but they felt it like it was a place they would talk about when they would go into. Like, that's not that easy to go up there right now.
Buffalo's always been a hard place.
Their fan base is awesome.
So their fan base, Jimmy,
we're going to get into that.
Is it 14 years now?
Yeah, 14 years.
They haven't played a playoff game. Those fans deserve a lot better.
Yeah. So we'll talk to Matt about that in a bit. Hey, Matt, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, first time that's ever happened. The phone overheated outside.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Well, Matthew, I was talking about how much respect I have for the buildings you had to play in back in the day. The Odd was obviously a tough place. Chicago Stadium was a tough place. It was no bargain going to Boston Garden, especially Buffalo, Boston. No bargain going in there. Detroit, Joe Louis was not a walk in the park, especially when they had Koster and Probert there. You go into New York, and I don't have to tell you, Ty Domi. But how about that bus ride down the ramp in Philadelphia to go to the Spectrum? How about that bus ride, Matthew?
Yeah. Toronto Maple Leaf, the Maple Leaf Gardens, and when they had Baumgartner and Kyprios and Domi that first year. Yeah. But Philadelphia, man, that's one place I wish I would have played. I love being villain number one. And pulling in when you're a 23-year-old in the playoffs and you're getting death threats to your hotel, where there was actually people calling the hotel and you didn't unplug it because you didn't have a cell phone. Getting the death threats, them coming by the hotel, just honking the horns at all hours of the night. They are the craziest sports people in the world. Like, they're bona fide. Like, they all belong. Every Philadelphia Eagle, Phillies, and Flyers fan belongs in a mental institution. I think we can all agree on that. But there's no place in this world that loves their teams. Maybe Boston.
Yes, yeah. I was going to say, don't forget us. maybe
Boston. But Philadelphia, man, I would have loved to play there, because what a place. They They absolutely loved it. Yeah.
Well,
They just
Matt, I'm
great
sure you
response.
remember that. We got a little clip we want to play, a memorable moment, I'm sure, for you from '96 in Philly. Let's go to that clip right now, and then we'll ask you about it.
And now, here comes Barnaby after Snow. Barnaby down in the lane, Snow in front of the net. Here comes Triple off the length of the ice to get involved. Barnaby got up and went after Snow. And Triple off for the ice.
Okay, so for those who don't know, you can't see it there, but Matthews is on the ice, and the ref's kind of checking him out. You okay? Okay, and then you just get up and beeline at Gar Snow and start going off on him. What happened in that little moment there that made you go over there?
Well, first of all, thank you for not showing the Chara fight or the Grimson one.
No,
You showed me one that I won, so that's first and foremost. I had fought him the year before in he was playing in Cornwall.
Yeah,
he was playing. Yeah, he was tough. He was very tough.
Yeah.
Great. Ended up playing with him in Pittsburgh, but he played for Cornwall. I played for Rochester, and they had the Roberts brothers who were absolutely monsters. So tough. So I had like a history with them, and then this happened, and that game between Philly got a little out of control, and it got very chippy, and just, you know, I had told Maisie before, like, let's get it going. And that was kind of our team when things weren't going well or they were going too well. We love performing in front of our crowd and trying to get our guys going, and getting the fans going. We love playing in the odd. So that had happened. I didn't know that I was going to get literally cross-checked in the ribs by Shane Ontoski. I should have known with who they had on the ice as well. So once that came in, I know Bob Bugner's on the ice, Brad May's coming in the ice. My boys are coming. Like the cavalry's coming. It's the old wild, wild west. You're not fighting one guy. So Maisie come in, and for those wrestling fans out there, when I was a kid, Superfly Snook, it literally came over the top rope, and mayhem ensued. So everyone's paired off. Now Jimmy Pizzatelli comes out, who saved
trainer Jimmy.
Story for next day, but Jimmy loved the fights. Like Jimmy we called him Don King because he'd go to the other team's trainers before the game and set up who was going to fight who. Jimmy came and he's like, Barney, are you okay? I'm like, Jimmy, I'm fine. Just tell me if everyone's paired off. And he's like, yeah. I go, anyone loose? And he's like, no, everyone's paired off. Everyone's got someone, or the ref has them. I go, okay, Snowy's going to come over here in a sec. I know he's going to say something or do something. He might even try to jump on me. Just get out of the way. I said, but if he comes over, get out of the way because I'm jumping up. Like 2 seconds later, he comes over and he tickles me, and he called me the P word, and I just jumped up, and I knew I had free reign for at least 10 seconds. And
then everybody came in. Your goalie came down. It was
Steplov came in, and then Brindamore came in, and I fought Brindamore and broke his nose. So it actually worked out well. All that happened, and I didn't have to fight Antoski.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, by the way, Jimmy, he talked about Jimmy Pizzatelli. He's the guy that saved Clint Malarchuk's life when he got cut in the neck.
Yeah,
and he was a Vietnam medic, and that's how he knew to do that procedure.
Wow. Is he still alive?
Guy.
No, he's been long retired, I think. Right?
Okay. Is he still alive though? Still alive or?
Yeah, still alive. I think he lives in Florida now.
Okay.
As far as I know, I was with the great Rip Simonek, and Matthew knows him very well, and he keeps me up to date on all the guys, including Matthew.
It was a great crew.
Good stuff. Hey, Matt, so just quickly, you mentioned what you're doing, motivational stuff. You do a podcast as well, right?
You know what? I stopped the podcast because it was through Bet99 and all that. So I'm not doing the podcast anymore. Just summertime, I play a lot of golf. This is one of the rare days that I'm not playing golf. So I play a lot of golf, and again, kiddie time, and go see my kids. They're getting older, 26 and 23, and then just a lot of events. But mostly like events and motivational speaking.
Quickly too, before we let you go, I forgot to ask you, what's your take on the Sabres? Pierre and I have been talking about it off the air, and we just mentioned it when you froze there. I mean, we're going on 13 years now, no playoffs. You know that market well. You know how passionate these fans are. If they don't do it this year, if they don't get to the playoffs this year, are they blowing it all up again? I mean, how many times can you blow it up? You know,
it's listen. I'm on the outs with the Sabres, not because of anything, only because I speak my mind. And I've said,
Well,
listen, they've made colossal mistakes in people in upper management, different people having their hands in things that they don't know about. And they've made this mistakes have been going on for 10 years. Like we'll go back 13 years, but really 10 years is when it really got pretty bad. They've made a lot of mistakes, and they chased the wrong people, and they spent the wrong money, and people went behind each other's backs. So it's been awful. It's saddening for me because I love Buffalo so much. I love the fans so much. I love the city so much. I want them to be a Stanley Cup winner. I want them to be a Super Bowl champion, but I'm a New York Jet fan, so that's really hard when my team hasn't made the playoffs in like 14 years. Do they blow it up again? I don't think they do.
No.
I don't think they do, and I don't think they're a playoff team this year.
Yeah. You think Lenny can help?
If they're not a playoff team this year, there's going to be some kind of change there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it'll be, but there'll be something going on.
Yeah, I mean, when you move Middlestat out, you bring in Byram in. They're young, but they're not young anymore. Like their guys got to take that next step. And is the goaltending good enough? Do they have enough punch? Do they have enough oompa? Do they have it? I don't know. Ottawa's here. Detroit are like they're all in the same boat. All those teams, especially I'd say Ottawa and Buffalo, are in the same boat. And I live here every day in Ottawa, and I hear everything. They've just changed new management and owner, so they have a little bit of leeway. Buffalo, I think I know who goes. I think it's Adams that goes, but listen,
Gotcha.
they keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And when you do that, definition of insanity, man.
Yeah. As they say, you know what? Trickles down. That's the way it goes. Yeah. So anyhow, Matt, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. We'll have to get you on again. Absolutely. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and thanks for joining us.
Cheers.
Matt, we're going to golf. I'm going to get you up here to Tremblant. We'll golf. I'll get in touch with you after the show.
Absolutely. Love you, Pierre. Thanks.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Right. Yep.
Matthew Barnaby joining us here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network. That was great. Glad you suggested to get in touch with him, Pierre.
Well,
great guest.
I got a lot of time for Matthew. I don't think you have to be politically correct to be really good in hockey. I think you got to be knowledgeable and have passion for the game and watch a lot of games and have an informed opinion. And he does. He does all those things. He's a passionate hockey man, and he wore it on his sleeve all the time. And, I started the show. I mean, when he first broke in the league, he'd go after our bench, and I'd be like, who the hell is this guy? And I went right after him. Like, I'm telling you. And then Torch started yelling at me. And then Muckler started yelling at Holmgren. It was bedlam. So that was back in the old days where I guess you could do that. You can't do that anymore. You might get suspended for a year. You never know. But yeah, a lot of stuff happened back then. A lot of stuff. And I've always respected Matthew a ton because of that.
All right. We touched on it a little before we got Matthew on. I just want to say, I'll get your take quick, and then we'll dish it to our friends here in the comments section. Pierre, just your take on the offer sheets that the St. Louis Blues laid down to Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway. It was kind of like a dead time. We're sort of in that dead zone right now. So I think this took a lot of people by surprise. But here we are. And Edmonton has not matched or done anything yet. What's your take, and where do you see this going?
Well, if they're going to match on either player, they're going to have to move at least one body out and probably two. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they needed to be so redundant going out and getting scoring. They went out and got Victor Arvidsson from LA. They went out and got Jeff Skinner from Buffalo. I don't know why they did that. And I said it at the time. I'm not trying to play a Monday morning quarterback. And so I get it. They thought that that's what they needed to take the next step. Okay, that's fine. But you had to know. You had to know, especially when you knew you were letting Kenny Holland go, you had to know that this had to get done. Because if it doesn't get done, there's going to be some predatory offers out there. And the way these deals are structured for established NHL players like Broberg and Holloway are, to pay a second and a third round pick for those players, that's a bargain.
Yeah.
Now, I do think, I'll tell you this in all honesty, I think the Broberg deal is a little high dollar-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's an expensive deal. It's an expensive deal for St. Louis, but they also need that. They needed to upgrade their defense, especially if Torrey Krug's out for the entire year because of a long, and maybe forever because of a terrible injury.
Horrible.
So that Broberg, fits and takes his spot substantially and very well. But I get the fans in Edmonton are angry, Jimmy. I totally get it. Nobody likes to have their team poached. That being said, I saw bouquets they were throwing all the upper management guys about what a great summer and we don't need a GM. You're our guy, Jeff Jackson we're talking about. You can do it all. Well, now they're blaming Kenny Holland for not getting this done. Kenny Holland was let go right after the Stanley Cup final.
What have you been doing for 3 months?
Yeah, we're 2 months later.
Months, yeah.
Come on, what are they doing?
Yep, I'm with you.
So enough of the blame on Kenny Holland. And by the way, it's Edmonton, just so Edmonton Oilers fans understand this, Dustin Penner, I remember when this happened clear as day. Dustin Penner got signed by Edmonton from Anaheim, and I'm telling you right now, because he's a buddy of mine, they're both buddies of mine, but Brian Burke was ready to freaking fly to Edmonton and go fight Kevin Lowe. I'm telling you right now he was.
I can see that.
He was.
Yep.
That was a predatory offer.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, like in Edmonton, be careful who you're throwing stuff at.
Yeah.
It's not like you guys haven't done this before.
Right. Exactly. And Pierre, here's the one thing I want to ask you too. You talk about predatory offer. We don't see this much, right? And it's almost like there's always been this sort of unwritten rule amongst the GMs. You're not going to do this. At what point do you think, if ever, will we see more of it?
There should always have been. Like this is what
I don't know why they don't use this tool. What's the deal?
Every interview I've ever gone on, I've been asked this question. I say the same. Until it's illegal to do, we're going to utilize it if it's going to make our team better.
Yeah,
100%.
Now, forgive me for saying this right now because I don't have what the necessary return would be in front of me right now. I didn't look it up before I said this, but it just came to the top of my head. If I'm the Toronto Maple Leafs right now, how have you not offer sheeted Jeremy Swayman? If you're another team that needs a goal, what about the Edmonton? I mean, somebody needs a goalie. Why are you not going after Jeremy Swayman?
So what you need to pay attention to are you have to have the actual picks available to do it. So that's, when you're talking about 31 other teams, nobody has that right inside their brain without a computer. So you're going to have to look at all that. So that's number one. Number two, there are major cap issues in Toronto, Jimmy. I mean, Jimmy, like the cap is a real part of this. And that's why I use the term predatory. They know, St. Louis knows, Jimmy, that there's no way Edmonton can match these because they got to get Draisaitl done. If Draisaitl's extension isn't done, see you later, alligator. Like you think it's bad on these two guys.
Yep.
I mean, so they're in a tough spot. And here's the one thing. I'm going to say this, and I don't care what people are saying or writing. I'm going to tell you the facts. That's all I care about, getting the facts out there. Kenny Holland's a very popular person in the National Hockey League sphere, okay? Mm-hmm. He was a really good scout. He was an amateur scout, and then he was a real good management person, and then he was a real good GM, and he won cups, and he learned really well. He learned from Jimmy Devellano. He learned from Scotty Bowman. He learned from the very best people. He learned from a great scout by the name of Nick Polano, who's no longer alive, but he learned his lessons, and he did it the right way. And he goes to Edmonton, and people thought the team underachieved when he was there, and they maybe did. But I would tell you this right now. There are people in the NHL, I think, were setting up to go after Edmonton because they're mad at how Kenny was treated on the way out.
Wow. Interesting. And just for
nobody's told me that, but I also know how the league works.
Yep.
And he's been he's been an ingrained person in this league since 1985.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
He's got plenty of allies.
He's a respected person.
Plenty of allies.
He's in the Hall of Fame as a builder. That's hard to do when you're still working in your career. It's really hard to do.
And just so everyone knows, just so we have the facts out there, if a team was to make an offer sheet to Swayman, it would take 2 first-round picks, a second-round pick, and a third-round pick. So that's a hefty ransom there.
And in order to do that, you got to have the picks in your war chest. If you don't, so a lot of these teams don't have those picks.
Yep. Yeah. That's
and this is my next big thing on the soapbox, and then we'll get to our viewers and listeners. For a long time now, a lot of these owners have been hearing, boss, we're not getting to the level we need to because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
We're not getting to the level we need to get to because the drafts haven't been as good after 2020. So all these managers have been in self-preservation mode for about 5 years now, 4.5 years.
And who's been paying the price? The coaches.
The coaches have no voice with the owner. We lost 15 or 16 in 1 year.
It's insane.
They were punted right out.
Yep.
I think the whole landscape is going to change this year.
Yeah. I think a lot of GMs are on notice for sure. I'm with you on that. All right, Pierre, let's get over to our viewers in the comments section here. And before we do, I want to tell everybody about our sponsors. Well, I already forgot how to say it. Homage. There we go. Homage is they specialize in ultra comfy, high quality looks, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description. And I got to tell you right now, and by the way, the shirts I got, Pierre, I loved them. It was an old school Red Sox one, a 2004 World Series team that broke the curse. I got a nice Red Sox Grateful Dead shirt. They have everything you want. All these cool designs and just old school designs, new, what have you. So go over there right now. It's homage.com. That's HOMAGE if you're not watching.com. Check them out there. And then let's go to our other sponsor right now, Manta. And Pierre, I know that your daughter enjoyed the free gift that the only mask designed and optimized for deepest possible sleep in any environment, 100% blackout for deeper sleep, infinitely adjustable for personalized fit, absolute comfort. Visit mantasleep.ca and use the code SICKIT for 10% off. That's SICKET. SICKIT for 10% off. Pierre, Justine was able to use this and sleep pretty good, I heard, huh?
Yeah, she's used it a lot because of the fact she travels so much. She's working and living in Europe, as you know, Jimmy, and she was just back. She left yesterday, and she said, Dad, this is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
It really works for her.
I like it too. I've used it.
You know, like I'll give you an example. She flew late last night. She landed over in Ireland, I think around 8:30 this morning. She went straight to work, and she worked the full day. And her work's not just showing up and, flipping a burger. She's involved mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a difficult job, but she feels so good about it. And she told me it really does work. It's really
nice.
Good.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's get over to our questions quick here. Let's see. What do we got? Alex Ivanowski. What's up, Alex? Still no Crosby contract. Call me crazy, but maybe he's having second thoughts about how he wants to finish his career. Pierre?
Alex, every Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon, I do Mark Madden's radio show in Pittsburgh, and they're actually trying to extend it so that it's almost 4 or 5 days a week. It's been phenomenal. And Mark and I talk about this almost on a weekly basis now. I really believe if Sid's not signed before camp starts, all of a sudden it becomes a major issue. It becomes an issue. I did not know this till yesterday, Jimmy.
Yep.
If you look at the start of their schedule, Pittsburgh, it's like the Bermuda Triangle. They go to like all the hardest places to start the season with mass media. Toronto, Montreal.
All that.
Their first 3 games are on the road. So if Sidney Crosby's not signed before they go into these Canadian marketplaces to start the season, what do you think's going to happen?
Not a distraction at all.
No, not at all. So Kyle Dubas has to get this done. The people from Fenway Sports and Entertainment have to get this done. And if they don't, then anything's in play. I think Alex asked a great question.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. Fenway Sports, Pierre, obviously being rumored in the Celtics sale potentially. That's a thing I was telling you, and I'll say it here publicly. I think I already have said it maybe once publicly on here, is that, a lot of teams that the Fenway Sports Group own have become frustrated because they'll buy the team and they'll go all in for the first year and they'll be all rosy and everybody's happy. And then they just sort of move on to their next venture and, okay, I want to buy this now. I want to buy that. Good on them that they can do this. They're a very profitable business, but it's almost like they're not, are they too focused on the Celtics right now or on another purchase? Is everybody in the same boat when it comes to Crosby and getting that done? Have they just said, all right, Kyle, you get it done. Whatever you need, we'll give it to you. Who knows? But just keep that in the back of your mind that they have a lot of other things going on as well. So I don't know. I have nothing. This is just me spitballing right now. I have nobody telling me that that's a factor, but it's something to keep in mind is that they are a very busy ownership group. So
they haven't made the playoffs in the last 2 years.
Yep.
Do you think that they're a favorite to make the playoffs this year?
No, not at all. I have them missing the playoffs, Pierre, as of now.
They're a cap team.
Yep.
They're a cap team.
That's not good.
No.
All right, next question. Mike, hey guys, hope all is well. Hey, Mike, hope the same for you. At what point of a rebuild can we say it has failed? Is it year 5, 6, or 7? What does a successful rebuild look like? Is it being a constant playoff contender, Pierre?
I think usually after the 5th year, you can tell if the rebuild's on track or not. It takes about a cycle. And so in college sports, a cycle's 4 years. In pro sports, I'm going to say a cycle's 3.5 to 5 years. And you'll know with being really consistently in a playoff position, you don't have to stress out to make the playoffs. The more the growth is in the rebuild, the deeper you go in the playoffs. So then you can see it's really starting to take. But every rebuild's different. Sometimes you only have to tweak 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
Other times you got to tweak 10 things.
Revamp. Yeah.
Sometimes you need to change the coaching staff and the management. Sometimes you just have to change the way you're developing players. I mean, every rebuild's got a different thing to it. It really does.
It is. Everyone's unique. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Hey, Randy. Pierre and Jimmy, would you match the offer sheets of Holloway and Broberg if you're the Oilers?
You'd have to, in order to do it, you're going to have to trade somebody from the back end, I think, probably Cody Ceci.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're in a mood to do that or not. I just don't know. I don't know whether they're in the mood to do that. I personally think Dylan Holloway is a really good player for Edmonton. And it's not that Broberg's not, but I think Dylan Holloway's got a chance to
he brings a little more of what they need, I think.
And I've watched him a long time, going back to when he started playing for Tony Granato at Wisconsin. He's starting to really make progress.
Mm-hmm.
And I think St. Louis obviously sees that. And think about St. Louis now. Our favorite player on the eye test is Jimmy Snuggerud.
Uh-huh.
He went back for another year. As soon as Minnesota's season's over, he's going to St. Louis.
Yeah. He's coming in.
And so you had Dylan Holloway into the mix, and a couple of the, like Robert Thomas is there, Jordan Kyrie's there. You start looking at some of the young guys they got coming up, all of a sudden they went from being a vanilla team. They're going to stimulate their fan base again in St. Louis.
Yeah. And as you pointed out, and I think somebody in our chat pointed out as well, this has Peter Chiarelli's fingerprints all over it.
Oh, what yesterday or 2 days ago when this happened, total disclosure, I'm working out real hard at my parents' house, which is just down the street from where I live right here. And I am coated. It looks like I'm swimming in a pool, but I'm not. I'm riding a bike. And my daughter's working out next to me. And again, full transparency, elite athlete, had a chance to be an Olympian, got hurt, didn't make it. It's okay. Anyways, we're pushing each other around. It's good. And Jimmy sent me a note. I said, Chiarelli.
The first thing he said. That was it. That's all.
Jimmy.
Yep. A little revenge there. So there you go. All right. Next question. Mike, would you have sent a higher offer sheet to AHO? Did you agree at the time with the contract they sent?
Are you talking about Aho?
I think he's talking about Aho. Yeah. Aho.
I don't know. It's a good question. I'd have to refresh and look at it. I just don't know. I don't want to lie.
Yeah, I don't remember the time at the time when it, the circumstances were. We'll see, but I'll look that up and we'll get to it next week. We'll talk about that, and we'll probably have news. We'll have to, because I think Monday they have.
So yesterday was it Monday or yesterday? I forget. Monday. Yeah, it was Monday. So today's Monday. You're right. So it was Monday.
Yep.
They have 7 days to match. And here's the thing. And again, I'm not trying to talk down to anybody, but just so everybody understands the rules of the road on this. Once you match, you choose to match, you can't trade that player for 1 calendar year.
Mhm.
So you own that player.
Yep. You're
And
locked in.
that player might be getting overpaid, but too bad.
Yep.
You own that player.
Yep. So we shall see what happens if the Oilers match or not, if the Blues succeed. We will know by the next time we are here on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network, and we'll have another great guest for you then. Thanks to Matthew Barnaby for joining us. Thanks to Shane working the boards in Montreal. A big shout out to the rest of our crew. They're off in Toronto right now. And thanks to you, Pierre, and thanks to our viewers and listeners. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. We'll talk to you on the Eye Test next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.